Imagine waking up tomorrow in the year 1 AD, without a cell phone, without the internet, without anything you know today. You could survive in a world where each civilization lives in isolation, unaware of the other's existence. And if I told you that even without technology, these cultures had fascinating things in common. Prepare to travel through time and discover what it was really like to live on our planet over 2,000 years ago. You might have imagined that the year 1 was a uniform, primitive world, frozen in time. But the truth is that our planet, even without modern technology, was a vibrant mosaic of cultures, empires, and beliefs, completely different from one another. At the same time that Rome already had 1 million inhabitants and an impressive infrastructure, the people of Judea lived in constant subjugation, divided between their faith and Roman rule. At the same time, thousands of miles to the east in China, the powerful Han dynasty was creating the paper and administrative systems that would change the world forever. And across the ocean, without any contact with these people, the inhabitants of Mesoamerica planted sacred corn and played a ritual sport that symbolized the struggle between life and death. Each civilization had its own language, its own gods, its own way of seeing the world. And despite being separated by vast distances, they all shared the same dreams, fears, and human desires. And to begin this fascinating journey, let's go straight to the heart of the ancient world, Rome. Imagine waking up in a bustling city of nearly 1 million inhabitants, bustling with merchants, soldiers, and slaves from every corner of the empire. You'd quickly realize that Rome wasn't just big, it was grand. With monumental aqueducts bringing fresh water from afar and vast arenas where thousands watched chariot races, the city exuded power and spectacle. Here, bread was more than food. It was politics. Every citizen was entitled to a free daily ration of wheat, a brilliant strategy for keeping the people satisfied and loyal to the emperor. It's no coincidence that the expression bread and circuses originated. While the people ate and were entertained, Roman soldiers scattered along the borders ensured the empire's security, earning a fair wage to survive, send money home, and remain loyal to the government. And if you were born Roman, you would probably live to be 35 if you escaped war, famine, and disease. Perhaps you spent your afternoons at the Circus Maximus, forgetting your troubles while betting on a race. It's hard to believe, but 2,000 years ago, Rome had already discovered a formula we still use today: food, fun, and power as a recipe for crowd control. But not all regions dominated by Rome had plentiful bread or arenas to entertain the people. While the capital thrived in grandeur, at the eastern edge of the Roman Empire, there existed a completely different land, Judea. Imagine walking through narrow, dusty streets, hearing different languages at every step: Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, and Latin, in an environment charged with tension between religion and politics. Here, Roman luxury did not come easily. Instead, the population lived under constant surveillance, ruled by Herod, a leader allied with the Romans but feared by his people. Life was precarious. Money barely covered a loaf of stale bread bought with small copper coins called leptons. Jerusalem was the region's spiritual and commercial hub, where caravans from Egypt, Syria, and Arabia brought spices, fabrics, and rumors of a possible Messiah. For the Jewish people, hope lay precisely in this promised savior, who would free their land from Roman oppression. At night, as soldiers sharpened their spears against the city walls, entire families gathered in silent prayer, dreaming of better days. In Judea, unlike Rome, bread wasn't politics. It was survival. And the spectacles didn't take place in arenas, but in the streets, through preaching and prophecies that would profoundly mark human history. If in Judea people lived in constant tension between faith and oppression, on the other side of the world, in China, the Han dynasty built an organized, sophisticated, and incredibly advanced empire for its time. Imagine a society where order, knowledge, and balance were the fundamental foundations of life. Here, the Chinese already conducted detailed censuses, carefully controlled agricultural production, and selected rulers through rigorous examinations based on the teachings of Confucius. It was precisely during this period that a revolutionary invention emerged: paper. Something so simple today, but at the time it changed everything, allowing laws, stories, and wisdom to be shared more quickly and cheaply. And it wasn't just with paper that the Chinese excelled. Gigantic canals connected different regions, transporting rice, silk, and soldiers, across hundreds of kilometers, further strengthening imperial power. Unlike Roman and Jewish citizens, Chinese families lived guided by a deep respect for their ancestors and the cycles of nature. For them, everything, from marriages to taxes, needed to be aligned with the balance between heaven and earth. While in Rome, bread guaranteed control, and in Judea, the dream of a Messiah brought hope. In Han China, harmony and knowledge guided millions toward the future. And speaking of cultural connections and exchanges, we will now travel the most famous route of antiquity, a route that united distant empires and peoples, the legendary Silk Road. But while the Silk Road connected civilizations in Europe and Asia, there existed another world that, despite its isolation, flourished with its own wealth, Mesoamerica. Now imagine a place completely disconnected from Rome, Judea, and China, yet equally vibrant and surprising. Here, peoples like the Olmecs and the Proto-Mayans built agricultural villages around the milpa, a clever combination of corn, beans, and squash, capable of sustaining entire communities. For these peoples, corn was not just food. It was a living god, a symbol of the endless cycle of death. The villages had ceremonial squares where the famous game of pelota was played, a ritual that went far beyond sport, representing the balance between the worlds of humans and the gods. And although they knew nothing of metal coins, they had something even more valuable: jade, a bright green gemstone used in necklaces, masks, and sacred objects. Life here was communal, without a central empire, but linked by strong traditions, barter trade, and deep spiritual beliefs. At dusk, drums echoed, telling stories of ancestors, deities, and the eternal rebirth of nature. Even separated by vast oceans and completely unaware of civilizations on the other side of the world, these people shared the same human desires: protection, food, meaning, and hope. And it is precisely with this reflection on what connects us, despite cultural and geographical differences, that we will now place all these civilizations side by side to better understand how humanity lived simultaneously in the same year, under the same sun. And precisely because these civilizations were so different and distant from each other, an intriguing question arises. Did they never come into contact with each other? The answer lies in one of the most fascinating and dangerous routes in human history, the legendary Silk Road. Imagine caravans crossing scorching deserts, frozen mountains, and the territories of nomadic tribes, all to transport Chinese silk, exotic spices, precious stones, and revolutionary ideas between Rome, China, Persia, and India. Along this route, merchants not only exchanged goods but also shared religions, technologies, and even diseases, forever changing the course of humanity. Oases and fortified cities sprang up along the way, offering rest, safety, and the exchange of information, transforming isolated places into veritable cultural centers. At each stop, travelers brought with them stories of distant lands, sparking curiosity and imagination about peoples they would never meet in person. The Silk Road was much more than a trade route. It was a living corridor of culture, innovation, and encounters between seemingly unconnected worlds. And it is precisely by understanding the importance of these unlikely connections that we will now compare these civilizations side by side, seeing what differentiated them and what made them profoundly similar, despite the vast distances that separated them. Now that you've explored this incredible mosaic of cultures, it's time to place everything side by side, like different pieces of the same human puzzle. While in Rome, daily bread fed the people and the circus guaranteed entertainment and political control. In Judea, a small copper coin barely bought a loaf of stale bread, and life depended more on faith and hope in a Messiah savior. On the other side of the world, in Han China, rice, paper, and knowledge maintained an organized and sophisticated empire where the harmony between heaven and earth defined even laws and taxes. In Mesoamerica, without wheat or rice, corn reigned supreme, a sacred food nourishing both the body and soul of local communities. In all these civilizations, life expectancy was short, ranging from 30 to 40 years, with disease, war, and daily hardships always lurking. But despite differences in diet, religion, and currency, these peoples shared universal desires: security, sufficient food, health for their families, and spiritual meaning for their lives. Each in their own way faced the same basic challenges of existence. And it is precisely in these essential similarities that we perceive something powerful. regardless of time or place, we are more similar to each other than we imagine. With this idea in mind, let us now deepen our connection with the past and understand what it truly has to teach us about ourselves. And when we stop to take a closer look at these ancient civilizations, we realize that despite cultural, religious, and geographical differences, we are connected by something profound and universal: the human experience. Whether you lived under the hot sun of Rome, in the bustling streets of Jerusalem, among the rice fields of China, or in the corn-growing villages of Mesoamerica, we all shared the same dreams of happiness, the same anguish in the face of tomorrow's uncertainties, and the same hopes for something greater than ourselves. Each of these peoples loved, suffered loss, celebrated achievements, sought meaning in life, and left profound marks on the world we inherit today. By understanding these stories of the past, we realize that deep down we are not so distant from those who lived over 2,000 years ago. And that is precisely why knowing the past is not just an act of historical curiosity. It is a powerful way to understand who we are today and how we can build a better future. Now, with all this in mind, I want to know which of these civilizations touched your heart the most. Now that you have traveled through the year 1 AD and met different peoples who, despite their distance, had so much in common, it becomes clear how our past shapes who we are today. And you, which of these civilizations would you have liked to have known more closely? Mighty Rome, spiritual Judea, sophisticated China, or fascinating Mesoamerica? Tell us in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because we still have many incredible worlds to explore together. See you in the next video.